This is a poem from my book, Some Winged Wild Beast, Black and Red, Detroit, 1985. And it's the first poem, and it begins with an epigraph from the Polish poet Adam Mickiewicz. I never can say Polish the way I should because my parents were elegant speakers and writers and readers of Polish, but like so many of us, it was thought that it would be better to have their children not learn that language. So I'm a feeble speaker when it comes to Polish. Oh, you who prisons scourge and slay your own, who night and day in carefree revels spend, do you recall one single dream at dawn? Or recollecting, do you comprehend? One, everything was so quiet while I grew out of childhood, just the faint, lethal tick-tick of bombs biding time, waiting to wash up on the final landmine shores of rage. The streets, as I recall, were covered in winter by the shush of falling snow. The sharp sleet gnawing at the windows muted the helpless sound of tires spinning on bare ice and masked the continual whine of the furnace. In spring, mud insulated us, abundant and liquid, a non-committal brown sea dotted with debris, the private midden heaps of winter exposed on sodden lawns, or in the taut, coiled dreams of neighbors and family imprisoned by early morning alarms. Summers were so hot, tar melted, and at midnight the air was sticky as noon. The chemical gardens of summer shriveled in the heat. We sweltered any time of day. Blacks and whites, in our separate but equal ghettos, except when nightsticks shattered darker skulls and our white heads tossed intact in slumber. Summers of long bus rides, the fetid breeze pouring in open windows as the bus grunted in traffic across town to Belle Isle. Green Jewel in a poisoned river, forested and fountained island with something for everyone, a rental canoe for the day, paddling on brackish canals, or motoring out of the yacht club to any place on the distant shores of the river. Summers bicycling through the living green heart of elm-shadowed streets sick with inevitable blight and doomed, or driving out of reach of the steamy grasp of the city to Camp Dearborn, man-made lake and park and rules, where only residence or invitation opened the guarded gates, permanently closed to colored. I would choose to remember only this: the profusion of bloom on Belle Isle, the cultivated gardens and tended walkways, redolent with flowers, the conservatory echoing with the high, sweet trill of birds under greenhouse glass, calling far away above me, their quick avian bodies moving in and out of the lush canopy. The only tropic I've known, tight green fists of bananas hung out of reach. I longed for monkeys and permanent residence in that warm silence. 2. What did I know of black pain, except what I was told or read, which was more than most, but enough? What is it? I summon now with great difficulty. What is it rising ragged as river eyes, jagged and threatening, piling up like shards of glass, mountainous and glinting on the snowy shore? In the distance, the river opens, a belly slit by a sharp knife, a ribbon of blood pouring, beckoning. 3. The smoky smell of autumn curled around the city, drenching us all in its scented haze, leaving us drugged and longing, lungs strained from the added burden of burning. The trees blossomed crimson like blood and orange like fire. 4. This begins with a quote from Matthew, which I was then kind of into making use of the Bible for quote purposes like this. Every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. Everything divided, divisive, the city itself east and west, the inhabitants black and white, immigrant, mostly Polish, but Italian, Appalachian, and Southern black, too, the Points and Del Rey, two views of the same river, one rich, one poor. The living grass jammed up against concrete, and an economics of scarcity inside each house, every home a battlefield, the casualties our flesh and blood, wounded over and over in the self, ticking away our lives, bombs in dark closets, silent assassins. 5. How fatuous, these easy words, from the safety of moonlight, washing the straits, and the solitary hummingbird at dawn, shaking off its nightly torpor and feeding in the flowers. Mobile jewel, fallen eyelash of some god that exists only here. I am a self-imposed exile, a member of a wave of migration yet to be mentioned in official histories. I am the wanderer, weeping at the roadside, trying to ambush an immense sorrow. The heart asks what to do and refuses return, except in the safe automobile of memory, surrounded by tempered steel and vulnerable glass. 6. This is a quote from Walter Reuther, who was president of the United Auto Workers, and my father was a proud member of the United Auto Workers. This is Walter Reuther. We make collective bargaining agreements, not revolutions. And the quotes of statistics are old, from 1975, from a wonderful book, still appropriate now, called Detroit, I Do Mind Dying, A Study in Urban Revolution. There are 65 on-the-job deaths per day among auto workers, and a total of some 16,000 have from heart attacks. Annually, 63,000 cases of disabling disease, 1,700,000 cases of lost or impaired hearing. My father is a statistic. With half a finger, half a lung, he sits in a chair at 68, reading, smoking. Above him on the wall, a 35-year plaque from Ford's. On the periphery of hearing, the insistent drone of a wasp. 7. And this is a quote from the Warsaw Ghetto, May 1943. May you on the outside be blessed. Where are our deliverers? The 1975 Almanac lists over 40 reported dead among the Great Rebellion of 1967. That summer, the long-suffering finally exploded. That hot, spoiling summer, all the alarms tripped at once. Reported is an important adjective, a vital nuance of meaning. Nurses came home to sleep after days on their feet with the dead and wounded, came home and whispered about a macabre parade of the dying, 40 or more per hospital. My hometown, with tanks rumbling down familiar streets like newsreels from World War II. Farm boys, hastily uniformed in uneasy arms of the state, twitchy fingers on triggers, ready to shoot at any unexpected sound, a casual firecracker or a match flaring in the carnivorous night. The never-to-be-forgotten ack-ack of machine guns, mounted on tanks, slicing the summer night, shattering the DNA of dreams. Most of the dead, whatever the number, were black and poor, caught shopping for free. That's what we called it back then. Trapped in the tenement dark, or held at gunpoint and murdered at the Algiers Motel. I actually had a maternal cousin involved in that. There's a great book, The Algiers Motel Incident by John Hershey. A white woman standing at the window of her luxury hotel was killed by machine guns stuttering at the stars. 8. This begins with a quote from T.S. Eliot, the fire sermon from the wasteland, he was one of my first influences in high school. Burning, 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 O Lord, thou pluckest me out. O Lord, thou pluckest. Burning. Some of us went down dying that summer, or other summer seasons, other summers, consumed by the factory or fire, jail, drugs, a stray bullet, or the quicksand of marriage, family, job security. John Lee Hooker sings, "The Motor City's burning. Can't you hear the dry whisper of flame? The graveyard of elms roaring with the ravenous heat? Can't you smell a diseased and charred stench in the wind?" 9. This begins with a quote from my first mother-in-law, Hilda Henry, March 1983, in a letter. "Your hometown is turned into a wasteland." Who was it turned this fertile plain into ravaged prairie? Who was it turned a wild green land into the fume and belch of industrial refuse, municipal sewage, and corporate refuge? I am from a family intimate with lists. The convenience of a personal litany of abuse appealed to my father. I grew up with a sunrise list, his naming of names and personages to be shot at dawn, a private lexicon that swelled and grew with the long factory years. But now I say damn lists, and agree with Atwood. In this country, you can say what you like because no one will listen to you anyway. I say no one wasted Detroit in the dictionary sense. No one failed to take advantage or use the land and its people, black and white, for profit. Used up, spit out, husks. 10. It's a quote from the former mayor, Mayor Coleman Young. It's not the RenCen, which is the Renaissance Center, and you see that in all the shots of Detroit, on TV, the downtown, it's that Renaissance Center, the RenCen. It's not the RenCen, but it's better than nothing. Add this painfully documented ruin to the others on the list. Poletown, a neighborhood of people sacrificed for General Motors, because what's good for General Motors is good for the good old US of A. And like the Vietnamese city, now infamous, we had to destroy this city to save it. We had to desolate this neighborhood, devastate these people. 3,438 souls, Poles, Armenian, Filipino, Yemeni, Albanian, Yugoslav, Hispanic, and half black. We had to discard livelihoods rooted for decades, residences of a lifetime for 3,000 jobs, economic conditions permitting. Hell of a deal for a world, a neighborhood, a word that yearns to become, desires to be a tree, and stand by the water, immovable and irrefutable. Homes and businesses bulldozed for profit. These lives crushed by the wrecking ball and burned by the arsonist's torch, the city council and the courts. For what will it profit a man if he gain the whole world and forfeits his life? What is profit? A new God demanding bitter sacrifice, who watches the hummingbird unmoved and crushes it in an iron grip, a roboticized deity ripping the tenacious roots of all that is holy. This prophet, our doom.